You saw that black pipe in the thumbnail. $200. It cools a bunker down to 55 degrees and never asks for a single watt of power again. Sounds like a scam. It isn't. I sat inside a shelter once when the air conditioner died in the middle of July, and I watched grown men start to panic while the concrete walls began to sweat. That black shaft was the only reason any of us walked out with a clear head. And here in the United States, the building code makes it almost impossible to install one legally, which should tell you exactly who profits when you stay hot, dependent, and afraid. Stay with me, because a civil defense document from 1962 describes the same trick desert builders used more than 1,000 years ago, and almost nobody alive right now knows it. Let me take you back to that day, because it changed everything I believed about staying alive underground. I thought a bunker was a cold place. That's the picture everyone has in their head. You go down, the earth wraps around you, and you're safe and cool while the world burns above. That is a lie, and it's a lie that gets people hurt. A sealed room full of people is a furnace. Every body in that space throws off about 350 British thermal units of heat every single hour. Add a generator, a couple of lights, a hot plate, and you've built an oven with no door. That July afternoon, the outside air was 96 degrees. Inside, with the mechanical unit dead, the temperature climbed past 85 in under 2 hours. The walls didn't cool us. The walls started dripping because warm human breath hit cold concrete and turned straight to water. Here's the part nobody warns you about. It isn't the heat that gets you first. It's the moisture that rides along with it. When you can't move air, the humidity in a packed shelter climbs toward 100%, and at that point your sweat stops evaporating. Your body loses its only cooling system. People get dizzy, then confused, then they stop making sense. I saw a man that day argue that we should open the blast door to let some air in, which in a real event would have killed everyone in the room. That's what heat does to judgment. It doesn't just make you uncomfortable. It makes you stupid at the exact moment you need to be sharp. So the real enemy underground was never the cold. It was stagnant, wet, warm air with nowhere to go. And the fix wasn't a bigger machine or a louder generator. The fix was a pipe. A dark, simple, unpowered pipe that moves air on its own forever, using nothing but the sun and the temperature of the dirt around you. When I finally understood how it worked, I felt cheated, because this is knowledge that should have been handed to every family that ever dug a hole to hide in. If the idea of your shelter turning into a wet oven the moment the power dies rattles you even a little, then this is exactly the channel you want to be subscribed to, because I break down the quiet killers underground that nobody selling you a bunker ever mentions. And I want to hear from you right now. Drop a comment and tell me honestly, if the grid went down today and your safe room hit 90 degrees, do you actually have a plan to move that air, or are you just hoping? Be honest. The people who say, "I never thought about that," are the ones I'm trying to reach. Now, let me show you why that black pipe works. Because once you see it, you can't unsee it. 10 feet down, the earth barely notices the seasons. Summer or winter, day or night, the soil at that depth holds a steady temperature somewhere around 52 to 55 degrees across most of the country. It doesn't spike when it's 100 outside, and it doesn't crash when it's freezing. That deep dirt is a giant, free, always-on battery of coolness that sits under your feet whether you use it or not. The trick is to run a long pipe through that cool earth. You pull hot outside air in one end, the air crawls through the buried section, and the surrounding soil strips the heat right out of it. By the time that air reaches your shelter, it can drop 20, even 30 degrees. That's the earth tube. In Europe, they've been building them for decades. The French call it a puits provençal. The Germans and Swiss install them in ordinary homes, and they think nothing of it. A properly sized run of buried pipe can deliver cool air to a room using zero electricity all summer long, year after year. But a pipe full of air doesn't move by itself. Air is lazy. It needs a reason to travel, and that's where the black shaft comes in. This is the piece almost everyone gets wrong. You take a second pipe or chimney on the exhaust side, and you paint it black, and you let the sun hit it. That black surface can heat the air inside it 30 or 40 degrees hotter than the air around it. Hot air rises, you know that. So the air inside the black shaft shoots upward and out the top, and as it leaves, it sucks fresh air in behind it. That suction reaches all the way back through your cool earth tube and pulls a steady river of chilled air into your shelter. No fan, No motor, no fuel. Just the sun heating one dark pipe and the cold dirt cooling another. The hotter the day gets, the harder that black shaft pulls. Think about that. The system gets stronger exactly when you need it most. The whole thing is called a solar chimney paired with an earth-air heat exchanger, and the beautiful, maddening truth is that it costs almost nothing. A couple 100 feet of the right pipe, a dark stack, some careful digging, $200 in the right hands, and it will outlive the person who installs it because there's nothing to break. No compressor to burn out, no circuit board to fry. When the grid goes dark and every powered air conditioner in the county goes silent, this quiet black pipe just keeps breathing cool air into your shelter like it's the easiest thing in the world. So if it's that cheap, that simple, and that reliable, why isn't it in every home and every shelter in America? Why did I have to learn about it the hard way, sweating in a concrete box, instead of reading it in a manual? That question is where this story turns dark, because the answer isn't about physics. The physics work perfectly. The answer is about who decided you shouldn't have it. Let's go back in time, because passive underground cooling isn't some new invention a clever prepper cooked up on the internet. During the Cold War, when the government was seriously planning for people to live below ground for weeks, the engineers knew mechanical air handling was a weak point. Machines fail, fuel runs out, so they studied natural ventilation hard. There's a body of civil defense engineering from the early 1960s that lays out how to move air through a shelter using temperature differences and stack effect, the exact principle behind the black shaft. They understood that the safest air system is the one with no moving parts, because it can't quit on you when the bombs are falling. Look at the Greenbrier bunker under that fancy resort in West Virginia, Project Greek Island, the secret hideout built for members of Congress. It was kept hidden until a Washington Post reporter blew it open in 1992. That place was engineered to keep hundreds of people alive underground, and the ventilation was treated as a life or death system, not an afterthought. The people at the top always understood that air management is the difference between a shelter and a tomb. They built for it. They just didn't make sure you could. And go back further, because this is the part that got under my skin. In the deserts of Iran, in the old city of Yazd, people were cooling their homes to comfortable temperatures in 100-degree heat more than 1,000 years ago, with no power of any kind. They built tall towers called windcatchers, and they ran air down through underground channels, and they cooled entire houses through the worst heat on Earth using nothing but airflow and the temperature of the ground. Yazd is a recognized World Heritage Site today, and those systems still stand and still work. This is ancient, proven human knowledge. Cool the air with the earth. Move the air with heat. That's it. It was never a secret to the people who needed it. It became a secret only recently, and only in certain places, and the United States is one of them. And before I show you how that same pipe stops the one killer that scares me the most, let me tell you where all of this lives written down. Picture yourself 6 months from now, the power out, the July heat pressing down on your safe room, and you're not panicking, because you already dug the pipe, you already painted the shaft, and cool air is breathing into that room on its own. That's the calm I want you to have, and that's exactly what the collection is built to give you. It's called the Complete Field Edition, and it takes everything you've seen tonight and turns it into a buildable plan. The shelter blueprint and the bunker blueprint walk you step by step through a blast-rated shelter you can build yourself, with the real science of how these structures are tested, the exact order to pour, and the 65-degree passive thermal that lets the earth cool your space with no HVAC at all. There's also an exclusive third volume with real case studies and proven build templates you won't find anywhere else. And here's a test you can run for free tonight, with nothing but your own hands. Go outside, hold one palm low near the shaded ground and one palm up in the warm evening air, and feel that difference. That gap is the exact engine this whole system runs on, the same engine the books show you how to size and build. The fastest way to get the books is to scan the QR code right there on your screen, or go to the link in the description or the pinned comment. And this isn't a passing deal you have to rush. The cost you're already carrying is every summer you stay tied to a machine that quits the moment the grid does. And that killer I keep mentioning, the silent one, is exactly where we're headed next. Because here's what happens when you try to build one of these legally in most of America. You run into the code. Earth tubes and passive earth air systems sit in a gray zone that building inspectors don't like and permits rarely cover. The official worry is that a buried pipe can collect radon gas from the soil or grow mold and bacteria in the condensation inside it, and those are real risks I'll get to in a moment. But notice what happened. Instead of teaching people how to build these systems safely with the right slope, the right depth, the right materials, the system just quietly made them non-standard, not approved, not in the code book. And what fills that gap? Mechanical air conditioning industry worth tens of billions of dollars a year, selling you a machine that needs power you might not have, refrigerant you can't make, and repairs you can't do yourself. Every summer that machine ties you tighter to a grid you don't control. I'm not telling you the black shaft is dangerous. I'm telling you the exact opposite. I'm telling you it works so well and costs so little that an entire industry had no interest in you ever finding out. Dependence is profitable, self-reliance is not. Now, if you're the kind of person who wants more than the story, if you want the actual buildable version, every measurement laid out, I put together a complete blueprint and survival guide, and the link is sitting in the description below. It walks you through the whole thing step by step, the exact pipe diameter that moves enough air without slowing it down, how deep to bury the tube to hit that stable 55-degree soil, the length of run you need for the cooling you want, the correct slope to drain condensation, how to size and position the black exhaust shaft so it pulls hard even on a still day, and the specific mistakes that turn a life-saving system into a dangerous one. It's the difference between watching a video and actually having the thing built in your own ground before you need it. Everything I learned the hard way is written down in that guide, so you don't have to sweat in a dark room to figure it out like I did. Because here's the truth, building this wrong can hurt you, and I'd be lying if I pretended otherwise. Let me walk you through the ways it goes bad, so yours never does. The first killer is condensation. When warm, humid air travels through that cold buried pipe, the moisture in it turns to water on the inside walls. That's just physics. But standing water inside a dark, warmish pipe is a perfect nursery for bacteria, including the one that causes Legionnaire's disease, which you breathe straight into your lungs. People hear that and panic and give up on the whole idea. Don't. The fix is almost insultingly simple, and it's the same fix the old builders used. You slope the pipe. A gentle, steady, downward grade of about 2% along the whole buried run means water can never pool. It drains to a low point where you put a small trap or a drain, and the inside of the pipe stays clean, no slope, and you've built a swamp. 2% slope, and you've built a safe, dry channel that lasts for decades. That single number is the line between a system that cools your family and one that poisons them. The second killer is radon. In some soils, natural radon gas seeps up from the ground, and a buried pipe can draw it in. The answer is a sealed, smooth pipe, not a leaky, perforated drainage pipe, so the air only enters through your one controlled intake, and a solid intake filter, plus knowing your local radon levels before you dig. This is exactly the kind of detail the code was worried about, and exactly the kind of detail that's trivial to handle once someone actually tells you it exists. And the third killer is the one that scares me the most, because it's silent and it's invisible, and it's the reason I care about airflow more than almost anything else underground. Carbon dioxide. When people breathe in a sealed space, they exhale carbon dioxide, and here's the cruel part. Carbon dioxide is heavier than the air around it. It sinks. It pools down low, near the floor, where you sleep, where children sit, where an exhausted person lies down to rest. You can have a shelter that feels fine at head height while a lethal blanket of gas builds up along the ground. You won't smell it. You won't see it. You'll just get a headache, then drowsy, then you won't wake up. This is why so many old improvised shelters became death traps. People sealed themselves in for safety and suffocated in slow motion on their own breath. The black shaft system fights all three of these, but only if you understand the real secret behind it, and that secret is the thing I promised you at the start. It's simple enough to remember for the rest of your life. It's more than 1,000 years old, and once I say it out loud, you'll wonder why it was ever allowed to be forgotten. Here it is. The whole system lives or dies on one thing: a temperature difference between two openings at two different heights. That's the engine. That's everything. The old builders in Yazd figured this out with nothing but observation, and the civil defense engineers rediscovered it in those 1960s documents. And it comes down to this: you must pull your fresh air in low and cool, and push your stale air out high and hot. Cool intake down near the ground on the shaded, earth-cooled side. Hot exhaust up top through the sun-blackened shaft. That height difference plus that temperature difference creates a constant, gentle pull that never stops, day or night, as long as the sun rises and the earth stays cool. And because the exhaust is drawn from up high while the intake feeds in low, that killer blanket of carbon dioxide down by the floor gets swept up and carried out before it can ever build. The same pipe that cools you is the pipe that keeps you breathing. That's the part almost nobody puts together. They think it's a cooling trick. It's not. It's a breathing system that happens to cool. The Persians in Yazd weren't just fighting the heat, they were keeping air alive in enclosed spaces in a killing climate, and they did it with a tower and a tunnel and 1,000 years of hard-won knowledge that we buried under a permit office. The black paint on the shaft isn't decoration, it's the engine that makes the whole thing turn. Skip it, and your air goes still, and still air underground is how people die. Paint that shaft black, set your intake low and your exhaust high, slope your buried pipe 2% to a drain, seal it against radon, and you have built, for a couple $100, the one life support system in your shelter that can never be switched off, never run out of fuel, and never be taken from you. That's the whole thing. That's what I wish someone had handed me before I ever sat in that hot, sweating room watching men lose their heads. The knowledge was never lost by accident. It survived in the desert, it survived in old government files, it survived in a few stubborn builders in Europe who never stopped digging these pipes, and now it survives in you. Here's the feeling I want you to walk away with tonight. Being ready isn't about having the most expensive gear. It's about understanding the one simple thing that keeps you alive when the expensive gear fails. That's the quiet power the unprepared will never have. You're the kind of person who would rather know the hard truth now than find it out in the dark with your family counting on you. That's why you watched this all the way through. So let me leave you with the one thing that reorders everything I just told you. Your air conditioner is a convenience, but airflow is survival, and the two are not the same. The day you stop confusing them is the day your shelter actually becomes safe. Now, do something for me, because this audience almost never speaks up, and I'm asking you directly. Tell me in the comments which one you want me to break down next, the Yazd windcatchers, and how the ancient Connaught channels fed them, or the Greenbrier bunker, and how its air system was really built to keep Congress alive underground. Pick one and say it. I read them, and I build the next video from your answers. And next time, I'm going to show you the one ventilation mistake I made in my own build that I nearly didn't catch in time, a mistake that would have quietly ruined the air in the exact room I meant to survive in. I'm glad you stayed to the end. This video gave you the overview, but inside the shelter circle, I walk you through the full earth tube design for your soil. And you can ask me your own question. A real person, me, answers you, not a bot. You won't be doing this alone. Folks like you are already in there with me. Just point your phone's camera at the code on screen, and you can cancel anytime. No risk. Now, imagine never worrying about clean water again. There's a simple $100 engine that keeps it flowing endlessly. No power, no digging. And the reason FEMA stays quiet about it, that video's starting right now.